All right, YouTube. Elijah Wood has chimed in saying that it's fairly common knowledge that Hollywood is run by a bunch of fucking pedophiles. I think a lot of people surmised that that was probably the case to begin with. You know, you look at Jamie Savile or Epstein. There's a connection between Hollywood and politics within the United States, just as there's a connection between the concept of celebrities in general and politics as far as the power interplay. That is, the politicians will drag out a celebrity who's got a lot of fans to go stump for them, endorse them, whatever. The celebrity then gets to do like a one-off, show for the president of the United States or the prime minister of England or something. They get to sing a song or two. They get to put on a little dance. They get to have basically their minstrel show, which is exactly what they do on a day-to-day basis. Elijah Wood's exposing the whole thing, and a lot of people, they realize that it's not typical for celebrities who still have like A-list status, names that you would think of as being near the top of the list. It's not typical for them to sort of expose the corruption there. I mean, we all saw what Randy Quaid did, I think last year, where he basically just had a psychotic meltdown and he started ranting about how he had been used, he had been stiffed of money that was owed to him and so forth. We're used to seeing these older actors and actresses especially that kind of lend themselves easily to comparisons of being psychotic or something. We're used to them being the standard bearers of saying, yeah, they're all on drugs, or they're perverts, or they're sex fiends, or something like that. I would advise you all to read Manson File by Nicholas Schreck, though, because if you want to hear about what was going on back in the day, it sounds basically the same from Polanski, who has been incarcerated, or detained anyway, for fucking a 13-year-old, I believe, over in Poland. All the way down through drug stings, the FBI, and things like that. It's literally all there. It's fairly common knowledge that drugs are imbibed in Hollywood. It's fairly common knowledge these people do often have sex parties and stuff like that. Now, that's not to say that any randomly selected actor, actress, Hollywood director, whatever, is in this sort of stuff. Some of them are like straight edge and they're completely monogamous. But oftentimes, that's not the case. When somebody like Elijah Wood, fucking Frodo Baggins, says, yeah, Hollywood's overrun by a bunch of pedophiles, I'm going to take that quite seriously, because this isn't somebody who's old and potentially demented. This isn't somebody who has shown a past of being off kilter, someone who drinks their own piss and smears like shit swastikas on the wall. This is somebody who has a reputation for being, a sane individual. He's not particularly old. He's not bitter at Hollywood and just looking to get back at them because he can't get roles anymore, because nothing could be further from the truth. Here's Elijah Wood saying the same thing, sort of exonerating the crazier people that have said basically the same thing. Now, I said some time ago, yeah, Hollywood's completely overrun with drugs. We know this. It's kind of obvious. You get people together who have millions of dollars and who make their living. Sometimes they have to work 20 hours a day. Sometimes they don't work for a year at a time. And naturally, they're going to be attracted to, snort a little coke here, shoot a little heroin over there, here's some LSD. Of course, they have wild parties all the time, and you're not generally going to be invited to these things unless you happen to be the drug supplier. I believe him when he says this, essentially. And I think it would be good if others did as well, because we can see people who have been attached to Hollywood or the film industry in general, and they get nailed for something like this, like, again, Roman Polanski buggering a 13-year-old. We know that this happens. It's obvious that it happens. It's provably true that it happens from time to time at least. What's to prevent these people, because of their wealth, because of their station in life, because of the amount of power they tend to have, from abusing all of these things and just going hog wild and fucking kids and snorting blow all day? Well, the answer is there's nothing to stop them. You think that the police over in Los Angeles are going to go raid somebody's $10 million bungalow or something like that. No, they're too busy cracking down on like crackheads in the streets in the dirtier parts of town, I suppose. So yeah, it does happen. It's Randy Quaid alluded to the star whackers or the star knackers or something like that, and the idea was that former Hollywood stars or celebrities that got out of line, that tried to expose the fact that everyone else was doped up or fucking constantly, would have their reputations destroyed to the point at which people would think they were crazy. Now, I think the way in which he tried to deliver this message to the world essentially made it inevitable that people would think he was nuts, because quite clearly what he was doing there, the things that he was saying were off kilter. They were unorganized in every sense of the word, and then he started randomly fucking his girlfriend on camera while wearing a little paper cutout of some like Hollywood executive. That's insane to do. To think that other people would react positively to such a message, that's a little odd. But here's Elijah Wood. He's just saying, no, oh, my friend here, this other child star, he was like fucking sodomized by this director. My mom shielded me from it, and it's common knowledge that it's just as bad as like Jamie Seville and stuff like that. Yeah, I believe him. It just makes sense. Of course, they're going to be a bunch of pederasts and stuff. So, yeah, Elijah Wood has chimed in on the subject. It's funny because a lot of times when other people raise the specter of the concept that people with a lot of money and a lot of power would abuse that money and power for sexual or drug-related purposes, they get called a conspiracy theorist. But it just makes sense. We know human nature. We know what human beings tend to be like when they get into such a situation. Why? I find it funny. I have to assume that it's because there are a lot of fans of these people, like the directors and the celebrities and stuff. They don't want to think about Taylor Swift shooting heroin. They don't want to think about Katy Perry snorting cocaine, and yet probably they do. And there are some people that I myself would hope aren't involved with such a weird lifestyle. But that doesn't mean that they're not. I've pointed out, for instance, I'm a fan of Depeche Mode. But Dave, who sings for Depeche Mode, he could be a raging pervert for all I know. I don't have any way of knowing. I don't know him personally. So even though I don't want to think of him that way, and I hope he's not that way, I don't have any proof that he's not. What I do know is that people with that much money and power, they tend to get attracted to all these weird things. The real thing is it's a corrupting influence. You get some director or producer or something who's into this stuff. They'll pressure others to get in on it. Then when they've committed a criminal act or two, they can hold that over their heads and say, no, you're going to keep quiet about this because you've done it too. You're going to get to go to jail too if I get exposed. So just fucking shut up. That's the way it works. It works within politics too. We see Bill Clinton has visited Epstein's rape island a couple dozen times in the past. He quite clearly was not going there just to eat hot dogs. He was eating something else when he was there. And it's true. That is the truth. Whether or not we can objectively prove that to the standard of a court of law is something totally different. But we know, we understand. Subconsciously, we all know why Bubba Bill was there. We all know why these things happen in Hollywood. We know why there are so many child actors that they go to these parties or whatever. They're drinking the Shirley Temples, but there might be something spiked in it. And it turns out that now we have someone who's an A-list celebrity, no less, saying, yeah, of course it happens. Well, I'm going to tend to believe Elijah Wood when he's saying this. Not just because he's Frodo Baggins and saved the world from Sauron or something like that. I'm talking in serious terms here. That's about all. Peace out.